Hey, what's going on, everybody? Who 186 back again with another video. I didn't have time to talk about this yesterday, so I decided to do it now. It's pretty late at night. I just came back from going somewhere, but yesterday news came out that ScaleBound has been canceled by Microsoft. They ended their partnership with Platinum Games, and it's an unfortunate situation. You never want to see games, especially games like that was highly showcased. Like, I mean, we saw gameplay of this game like at E3 this past year. So to see games like that leave, it sucks. It does suck. And obviously with the news came out, you had a whole bunch of mass hysteria going on the on the internet. You have obviously the fanboys are going at it. You got a lot of people making videos saying that this is sucks, this is bad, blah blah blah. I hate you, Microsoft. Microsoft did the right thing, and all this stuff. And to me, I didn't really care about the game. To be honest with you, I wasn't. I didn't buy an Xbox One to play this game. But I think what this game cancellation represents a couple things, and I'm gonna try to talk about it and see if people can understand what I'm coming from. Now, to me, Scalebound was supposed to be the game for Xbox One that a game like Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon was to the 360. Now, like Scalebound is not what I would consider a typical Xbox game. And I don't want to like generalize Xbox gamers and stuff like that. I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. You know what I mean? But I don't want to generalize. I think we all like different things, and you can find all those things on these platforms. But like a game like Gravity Rush, for example, that game looks and screams PlayStation. You know what I mean? Like a game like The Last Guardian, that screams PlayStation. You know what I mean? Like a game like Halo, a game like Gears. I would say games like Sea of Thieves. Um, what else? Even Sunset Overdrive, Rise. Those type of games. Those games look like Xbox games. You know what I mean? Like those games, they have that Xbox feel to it. Maybe it could be confirmation bias on my end because obviously we see those games on Xbox and we see those games on PlayStation, but to me, like Scalebound was supposed to be kind of like the outlier. You know what I mean? It was supposed to be the type of game that highlights diversity for the Xbox brand. And while I do believe that the Xbox brand has diversity, I don't believe it's as much as PlayStation. That's just my opinion. But I do think the system overall has a diverse amount of games. It's just that Scalebound was supposed to be that highlight example. Was supposed to be the standout example, and now that it's gone, it sucks. Like it absolutely sucks. And the thing that I think a lot of people need to realize with this, and how would I say this? The way I would explain this idea is that when it comes to Microsoft and their attitude towards exclusives and first party developed games, there was a comment that they made a long time ago. It was actually near the tail end of last generation. I'm gonna try to look for it. I'll have it in the description below. But they said that they would much rather have games that sold well, have less games that sold well than have a bunch of exclusives that didn't sell. Because remember that generation, Sony had a whole bunch of exclusives from games like Resistance, Killzone, Uncharted. What's another game? I just said Resistance. They had a slew of big time AAA exclusives that either didn't sell well or was moderate successes. But Microsoft, on the other hand, they had Gears, which was a big deal back then. You had Halo, which was a big deal back then. So, and those two games probably outsold, like one version of Gears or one version of Halo probably outsold, all three franchises put together. You know what I mean? Like it was, the disparity was that bad. And to me, part of it is the fact that, at least in my opinion, that when the console has a higher install base, I feel like that the games on that higher install base is going to sell more. You know what I mean? This is my opinion. That's just my opinion. But back to the comment that they made. This is something that Microsoft has done for a long time now. You know what I mean? Because you remember when the original Xbox came out, they didn't have the best of luck when it came to third party partnerships. You know what I mean? Like for a little while, games like Tony Hawk and some of the early Madden games did not have online. They didn't feature online on the Xbox. They were only online on the PlayStation with the network adapter. You know what I mean? Like, and you look at it, and even though Microsoft had a impressive number of games on it, and they had a decent number of games that were exclusive to it, mainly because it was really the only system that can play those games. Like they still didn't have the same amount of support that Sony had, and it took the success of the 360 / failure of the PS3 for it to fully reach what it could do when it came to having third party support. You know what I mean? Because remember, like, especially earlier on that generation, games like BioShock, that game was exclusive to Xbox. Mass Effect, exclusive to Xbox. Dead or Alive, exclusive to Xbox. Saints Row, exclusive to Xbox. So the Xbox 360 had all these plethora of fucking games of new IPs that are IPs that we all know and love today. And at one point, all those fucking games started on the Xbox. Most gamers probably started playing those games, those big time, blockbuster games on the Xbox. And it created this thing where you had this, a lot of Xbox gamers probably thought that, hey, yo, we have a Mass Effect, we have BioShock, we have this, we have that, plus we have Gear, plus you have Halo, obviously, and you created this other franchise, this huge blockbuster franchise, and Gears. You know what I mean? They had a you could say that they had a slew of awesome exclusives, but as the generation went on, and games started coming out on the PS3 like Mass Effect 2, like Saints Row 2, I believe, yeah, Saints Row 2, as people became more aware of what they can do on the PS3, you had those franchises dwindling down. You know what I mean? Like, at least as far as exclusives for the Xbox. And what you were left was obviously the Gears, Halo, and then you look at a game like Crackdown. The original Crackdown game was very successful. The second one was not as much, and they killed it. They essentially put the franchise to sleep until Crackdown 3. And the point I'm trying to make is that this is Microsoft's MO. Their MO is to have big blockbuster, not necessarily AAA games, but blockbuster games that make them a lot of money. That's why they bought Minecraft. You know what I mean? Because that's a big money maker. They spent a shit ton of money to get that game. That's a big money maker. Halo is still a big money maker. Gears is a big money maker. If the game is not going to do well, then you may not see a sequel of that game. That's Microsoft's MO. Look at Rise. We haven't seen another Rise. You know what I mean? And let me backtrack a little bit. That's probably why we haven't seen a lot of in-house, first party titles from Microsoft, because they're not interested in wasting money on franchises and studios that are not going to make the money. You know what I mean? Like, they created 343 Studios, and they created the Coalition. Why? Because they're making franchises that people are going to buy no matter what. You know what I mean? Like, 343 is gonna make Halos, and the Coalition is gonna make Gears. As long as those games franchises make money, like, those studios are still gonna be around. And obviously, Turn 10 with Forza, they're doing their thing. They're fine. They're exempt from this conversation. But games like Rise from a third party studio. You know that you're probably never gonna see that game again unless Microsoft dumps it to another studio. Recore, you know, apparently the game didn't do very well, so you may not see one from concept. You might see it from somebody else, maybe. Sunset Overdrive, like the game apparently didn't do well commercially. Critically it was fine, but it didn't do well commercially. Like Insomniac, they made Ratchet and Clank, and they're making Spider-Man. So who's gonna make a second Sunset Overdrive game? You know what I mean? Like who's gonna make a second Overdrive game? Or will we ever see a second Overdrive game? You know what I mean? And the funny thing is that when Recore came out, I saw a lot of Xbox dudes pleading to people, yo, you have to buy this game, you have to support this game, please buy this game. And the reason why they did that, in my opinion, is because they know that if the game doesn't sell, Microsoft is not going to make a second one. They're not going to make a second one. And you know, you look at what happened with Scalebound, like, and what Microsoft said, you know, it makes I mean, what you know, some of the statements that they said, and I think some of the stuff that was alluded to with that, you know, what they're doing, it does make sense in a way. Like if a game is having is struggling to make a deadline, right? It's already been delayed. I think it's already been delayed once. I mean, this time last year was delayed. And if it's not ready to come out like now, if they need extra time, Microsoft is gonna be like, yo, we don't want to waste the money. We don't want to waste the money, and it makes sense in a way. It definitely makes sense. But at the same time, you look at what Sony's done. You look at what Sony did with their franchises last generation. You created, obviously you have Infamous, right? Not a huge seller, but you had 2 games, you had DLC, and you have the new game that came out on the PS4. You look at Killzone. If Sony had the same mindset Microsoft had, would have never had Killzone 2. You would have never had Killzone 3. You would not have had Shadowfall, and in turn, you would not have had Horizon Zero Dawn. You know what I mean? Like if Sony had the same mindset Microsoft had, you would not have gotten a second Uncharted game, which had never had turned into a third Uncharted game, which would have never turned into The Last of Us. You know, you get what I'm saying? Like I understand Microsoft's point, I understand Microsoft's stance, but at the same time, when you don't allow devs to fully, you know, allow them to flesh out what they did wrong in the first game, when you don't allow devs to really sink into a second game, you're not giving the game a chance. You're not giving the franchise a chance to be a system seller for you. You know what I mean? Like you look at what, like I guess they kind of rushed that with the original Crackdown. With Crackdown 2, it wasn't the same team, and the game failed. At least from what I remember, the game failed. And you know, you look at if you potentially see a Rise 2, if you see a Sunset Overdrive 2, do you fully trust a new team with the game? Because I don't. Because I don't. You know what I mean? Do you trust a brand new team, a team that's probably unproven, to do what Insomniac did with the first Sunset Overdrive game and have them make a second game? Do you guys trust them with that? Because I don't. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that I think a lot of people have had with Microsoft throughout the years, is that, yes, you know, we all want big blockbuster AAA games. We all know that, right? We all know that, you know, having a game that captures the imagination of millions and millions of gamers, where you have people, you know, going over to other people's houses, setting up LAN parties and shit like that. All that shit is like, that's awesome, right? But not every game is going to be that. And at some point you have to allow other games, even if the games are not great, like just because the game is not critically great doesn't mean that game doesn't have an audience. You know what I'm saying? Like doesn't mean that the game wouldn't have an audience, and it doesn't mean that the team behind the game can't use what they learned from their experience making one game and have that turn into a different game and turn those experiences to make an even better game with in the future. And I feel like more often than not, Microsoft does not allow their devs to do that. And I think it would be unfortunate to see studios like 343 Studios and Coalition. I saw Anchorman talk about this, and I agree with him 100%. And I thought about this for a long time. If you just let those guys just do Halo and Gears, you're not allowing them to do something new. You're not allowing them to be creative. And I think ultimately you want your devs to be creative. You want them to kind of be able to do something new, so that you can have Halo, you can have Gears, you can have Forza, and then also have whatever they do as a side thing, and maybe that can be something that can create a new blockbuster franchise, or at least a franchise that people give a shit about. You know what I mean? And it sucks to see what happened with ScaleBound, because that could have been that game for Microsoft. It could have been a game that could have led to something bigger and better for Microsoft in the future. But again, they're in the business of making money and making business decisions. That's what they decided to do. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is Phil Spencer's comments. Now, I know the video is going along. This won't take too long. I mean, what's he gonna say? Like, what's he supposed to say? Like, to me, no one. Look, canceling games. You can't damage control canceling games. That's bad. That's no good whatsoever. It sucks. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But like, I don't expect Phil Spencer to be like to throw Platinum Games under the bus. I don't expect him to throw their director Kamiya. I don't know his first name, but Kamiya. I don't expect to throw Phil to throw him under the bus. Like, I mean, he had to say what he had to say. Like, I mean, there's nothing. What else can he say? You know what I mean? It sucks, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, it is what it is. And to me, I just think that my overall point is that while you look at games like Platinum Dust, which was canceled, I didn't give a fuck about that. Fable Legends, which was canceled, which sucks, because that was also supposed to be one of Microsoft's marquee franchises, but I think they kind of fucked themselves over with that game by making it free to play and all that other shit. It should have been a legit Fable 4 in my opinion. But the ScaleBound cancellation hurts even more, because that, to me, that was supposed to be kind of like the outlier game for the Xbox, and it was supposed to be the game that shows people, hey, the Xbox has more than this and that, and it sucks, but at the end of the day, this is Microsoft. This is what their business is. That's what they're doing. I just wish that a part of me wishes that they had the same mindset Sony had when it comes to pushing games out. When it comes to like just allowing their devs to do something different, and also pushing through with some of these games that are unique, that can be something that can build Xbox portfolio for the future. So that's pretty much it. This is Ubi 186. I'm out. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good night. Peace.